Many things make no earthly sense. Abraham made choices that teach us how to live with purpose in an imperfect world. Other Bible characters did too. There are times in life when all of us are called upon to make heart sacrifices. Some of those sacrifices are things we choose because of a cause we believe in or a desired end that makes our decision worthwhile. However, most of us will face an Isaac experience when a crisis is thrust into our lives without warning and without survival instructions. Our Isaacs are the heart sacrifices we make when we choose to relinquish control and honor God with our choices, even when all seems lost. We have to decide if we will let go of our control over a person, situation, or event, or if we will hang on for dear life and refuse to relinquish something we cherish. As much as I don't like the process, I am learning that the cup of sorrow can also be the cup of joy. If you choose to embrace the principles outlined in this book, I pray that you will be infused with a fresh perspective on how to be authentic, courageous, and steadfast as you discover the hidden power in heart sacrifices. All of us have circumstances that produce varying degrees of personal loss and devastation. Will we maintain our grip on hope in the process of defeat? Will we live our lives with passion and purpose even if, in this lifetime, we are not permitted to have an answer to why something has happened? Will we choose unshakable faith, or will we give up on God? I believe God's great invitation is to engage us in the process of discovering the power of choosing faith when that decision makes no sense. There is hidden power in our unthinkable circumstances. 4 years have come and gone since I asked my husband the question, does life get any better than this? It's been the hardest and the most painful 4 years of my life. But what I have learned about authentic faith and about what really matters in life doesn't get much better than this. In the middle of laying our Isaacs down, we are not alone. Anne Lamott describes the awareness of His presence in the middle of desperate circumstances. After a while, as I lay there, I became aware of someone with me, hunkered down in the corner, and I just assumed it was my father, whose presence I had felt over the years when I was frightened and alone. The feeling was so strong that I actually turned on the light for a moment to make sure no one was there. Of course, there wasn't. But after a while, in the dark again, I knew beyond any doubt that it was Jesus. I felt Him just sitting there on His haunches in the corner of my sleeping loft, watching me with patience and love. This has been my most important discovery, and it is my prayer for you as you listen to this book. When God seems the most absent, He is the most present. He is in the middle of your circumstances, whether or not you have recognized Him. Because it's so hard to think clearly when the unthinkable happens, I offer you some questions to reflect on at the end of each chapter. You may find it helpful to write your thoughts in a journal or talk about them with a friend or in a small group. Or if you're the friend of the person who's facing the unthinkable, you may find these questions useful as you seek to offer support. As you embrace God's enduring, unconditional love, I pray that you will discover an unshakable faith that defies description, welling up and infusing your soul with courage. Chapter 1. An Unexpected Journey. The Power of Unthinkable Circumstances. There are moments when God makes utter and complete sense to us, and then suddenly life changes, and He seems a foreign remnant of a childhood force-fed faith. Lord, give us eyes to see your coming and going, ears to hear your voice and your silence, hands to hold your presence and your absence, and faith to trust your unchanging nature in all seasons. Elisa Morgan. The phone rang in the middle of the night. I squinted in the direction of the alarm clock as Jean reached for the receiver. It was 12:35 a.m. Who would be calling at this hour? Listening to my husband, I instantly knew he was receiving dreadful news. Jean pulled the receiver back and haltingly choked out the words, "J.P. has been arrested." I was dumbfounded. What illegal act could my son possibly have done that would have resulted in an arrest? My husband continued speaking with tears spilling down his cheeks. He's been arrested for the first-degree murder of Douglas Miller, Jr. My feet hit the floor as I tried to get out of bed, but my legs were incapable of holding my weight. I slumped to all fours. Nausea swept over me. I began crawling toward the bathroom where I could throw up, but everything was in slow motion. I had never before experienced shock. No strength, wave after wave of nausea, dizziness. I had to remind myself to breathe. Thoughts began swirling in my head. This must be a mistake or a cruel joke. Perhaps it's a case of mistaken identity. Maybe I'm living inside a horrific dream. Surely this news is not true. Someone is playing a perverse game. My son is not capable of taking the life of another human being, much less a premeditated act of such violence. This is not happening. My son is a dynamic Christian. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. He defends American citizens. He doesn't destroy them. I will go back to sleep and wake up in reality. Our daughter-in-law, April, was still on the phone, and through hysterical sobs of her own, she verified that she had just received a call from Jason at a jail in downtown Orlando, Florida, and he had been arrested for the murder of her ex-husband. Jean tried to calm her while simultaneously dealing with his own raw emotions. We were filled with incredulous thoughts. How? Why? What really happened? What was Jason doing in Orlando, a 6.5-hour drive from his home in Panama City? Was it an accident? Was it self-defense? The next few hours were a blur of tears, panic, fear, and erratic, meaningless activity. It was after 1 a.m. when Jean finished the conversation with April. Still on my haunches on the floor, I called the Orlando jail to see if anyone named Jason Kent had been brought to the facility. The woman on the end of the phone line was rude and irritated. Her speech was slurred. "Lady, we ain't got nobody by that name Jason Kent in here. Your son ain't here." For a few brief moments, hope returned. It was a mistake. Our son had not been arrested. Jason was okay, and we would be okay. But within an hour, another call confirmed our worst fears. Jason Paul Kent, our only child, son of my womb, was locked up at the 33rd Street facility in Orlando, and he was being held without bond on the worst felony charge possible, first-degree murder. Florida is a death penalty state. My mind flashed to the documentary I had seen the week before, giving the blow-by-blow account of an inmate on death row. Would my son end up in the electric chair? I choked out a fresh sob. As the next few hours crawled by, Jean and I held each other and wept. Two parents in the grip of a nightmare. A mom and a dad who loved their child deeply. A child who had been a joy to raise. A focused, disciplined, compassionate, dynamic, encouraging young man who wanted to live for things that mattered. A young adult who had dedicated himself to serving his God and his country through military service in the U.S. Navy. But that day, the unthinkable roared into our lives. Without warning, our dreams for our only child came crashing down in 1,000 broken pieces. Our whole world felt shattered. Desperate parents. Throughout the wee hours of that morning, Jean and I watched the clock as darkness slowly turned to dawn. I had always taught other people to pray when they were in trouble. It was easy to tell somebody else what to do during a crisis, but living through our own unspeakable situation was different. I am a woman who takes action. I'm a researcher, a public speaker, a leader in my community. Surely there was something I could do to fix this horrible problem, but I didn't know where to begin. My mind recalled a verse from the book of James. If you don't know what you're doing, pray to the Father. He loves to help. You'll get his help and won't be condescended to when you ask for it. Ask boldly, believingly, without a second thought. People who worry their prayers are like wind-whipped waves. Jean and I didn't do formal prayers that morning. We did wailing, pleading, moaning prayers. God, please protect and comfort our son. God, please send your angels to console the family of Douglas Miller. Please put your arms around April, Chelsea, and Hannah, our granddaughters. God, please help us to know what to do and who to call. We are desperate for wisdom. We need you, please. Looking back, I believe our prayers were more like wind-whipped waves than bold, believing prayers. We were begging God for assistance. We had never felt so needy in our lives.